Thaneco was born in Patras, Greece in November 1975. Composer of electronic music with several different influences from the electronica of the 70s and 80s, Berlin School, Krautrock, and Downtempo. During 1994 to 1998, Thaneco studied music composition and piano performance. He studied in Moravian College, Pennsylvania, USA, and got the Bachelor of Music. In 2001, he released his first solo album, Psychic Images, and in 2003, he released the album Incubation with his band The Flow, kind of psychedelic progressive rock from Greece. His later work is influenced by the electronic music of Tangerine Dream, Klaus Schulze, Rüdiger Lorenz, Cluster, Pete Namlock, Vangelis, of course Vangelis, John Carpenter, and many others. He uses both software and hardware music instruments. Some of his favorite software includes Ableton Live, Native Instruments Contact and Reactor, UHI plugins like Zebra, Diva, and Hive, or Arturia V Collection, and Rob Papen plugins, and Spectrasonics Omnisphere. Some of his favorite synthesizers are Prophet 5, Moog Mini Moog, vintage synth indeed, Moog Sub 37, Roland GX3P, Korg Polysix, Behringer Gray Mini, the ARP 2600 clone, ASM Hydra Synth, Korg Modwave, Nord Lead 4, and also a Eurorack modular system. And here he is, Thaneco.
Well, good evening to Greece, Thaneco.
Hello, how are you?
I hope you are well and creative and full of energy.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm glad to meet you.
I'm glad to meet you. The pleasure is on my side. Great. As my watchers already know, definitely know quite detailed who you are, let's jump into the first question at once. When I first, it's come some time ago, when I firstly came across your Bandcamp site and scrolled down, I said, wow, will it ever end? There's so many, I think 36 albums or something like that. Where does this energy come from? How do you manage this workload?
Yes, that's a good question, but I've been writing music since 2001, so it's been many years since I first wrote my first album. Mm-hmm. My first album was Psychic Images. Mm-hmm. It has many influences from progressive rock, from psychedelic rock, because when I was young, I was listening to this kind of music a lot. Mm-hmm. And I actually have a band where I play synthesizer. My band is playing progressive rock. It's called The Flow. It's from my hometown here in Patras.
Ah, yeah.
And we actually wrote an album called Incubation, and it was released in 2003. So when I first wrote my solo album, Psychic Images, I had many influences from this kind of music. Then later, I was listening to Tangerine Dream, more electronic music, sequencer-based electronic music, and it was much different than my first album.
Yeah,
I actually became involved in the Eurorack modular synthesizer business in 2009. I started playing modular synthesizers, and and later I started listening to bands like Kraftwerk, Noi, Popol Vuh, Cluster Harmonia, this kind of krautrock psychedelic scene. Also progressive rock, like I told you earlier, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Genesis. These were my first influences. Later, later, I was very attracted to the music of Klaus Schulze, Jean-Michel Jarre, Tangerine Dream,
I see.
and also the Greek composer Evangelis.
Yeah, sure.
He's one of my favorite composers.
Uh-huh.
And also, my music has influences from the 80s. It's because I was raised in the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s. So, as you can see, I'm very much influenced by this kind of music. And as you know, in this period of time, analog synthesizers and drum machines were very popular. And I have many influences from that period of time, especially from music from the films of that period. My favorite is John Carpenter. He's a film director of classic films like Halloween, Escape from New York.
Yeah, all romantic.
He was writing his own kind of music by himself with analog synthesizers, and that kind of music was very attractive to me. I liked it very much. So I think my albums now have all these influences from different kinds of music, from progressive rock, from the 80s, from sequencer-based music like Tangerine Dream. All these kinds of styles are very evident in all my solo works. That's all I can say. And now I know that I have many albums. That's because I have a lot of free time. I have free time to write music. And,
oh, that's luxury.
That's because my job is it's a day job. I'm teaching kids. I'm teaching piano to kids, and I also have I have a work in a public school here in Greece. And I have a lot of free time during the afternoons and also during the weekends. So I'm very lucky to be able.
Indeed.
I'm very lucky to be able to write music
yeah.
during this free time. You know.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, great, thanks. And let me agree. You are really very lucky to have a day job which concerns music, which has something to do with music. It's a lot of people I know, even very good ones, also who can't do this. Great. I know that you are working with hardware as well as with software. And I like to call this way of working a hybrid way of working. I'm talking only about the VSTIs, so the sound generating software, DAWs, and so that's clear. There are a lot of people say I don't like, I can't, or I don't want to work with hardware on one hand, or on the other hand, the software fraction who say no, only VSTs, and others say no, VSTs, only hardware, I have to feel the knobs. It's not that often that I meet people and can talk to people who work with both worlds. Are there any preferences? Is there, okay, at first, only one question. Are there any preferences?
I actually like both hardware and software instruments, and I don't have any preferences, but I find the hardware instruments to have a more a real sound. They're more immediate. It's like playing a real instrument, like playing violin, for example.
I see.
It's a different experience. You can make a different sound with the hardware and another sound with the software. It's not that the hardware is better than the software. It's better when you listen to the sound. It's more real, but you can make sounds in software that you cannot replicate in the hardware sometimes. And So I like using both hardware and software. And I also have some favorite software instruments that I would like to talk about.
Yeah.
I like U.S.A Zebra, U.S.A Diva also, Native Instruments Contact and Reactor. I use them a lot. Also Spectrasonics Omnisphere, if you are familiar with this. Lately, I like very much the Rob Papen synthesizers. Rob Papen is, as you know, a very popular electronic artist in the Netherlands, I think. He's from the Netherlands. He's making very good VST plugins. I like this very much, and many other. I'm a collector of vintage equipment. I like all the synthesizers, like the Minimoog, the Korg Poly 6, the Prophet 5. Also, I have a Prophet 5 from the 80s.
Great.
I like these very old synthesizers, and I like this sound very much.
Okay, I have to say, I work with both as well. Yeah, I'm also one of the few people who like both worlds, but I have to say the results are different. Even when sometimes I compare the real hardware with the software version of the same synth, and the sounds come quite near, at least quite near. By the way, Zebra by U.S.A, by the Berlin OS, was the VST that convinced me using VSTs. I was always skeptical.
It's very close to the analog sound, but an experienced musician can listen and understand that the real thing is better in terms of sound. But as I said earlier, you can make sounds in software very easily that you cannot make in hardware that easily, and it's a very fast procedure when you work with software.
Sure, it's easier.
So I like using both. It's not that I don't like software or I like hardware better. I think each one has its own characteristics. You can find some very good characteristics in software that you cannot find in hardware, for example.
I feel sometimes that let's say the flow of creativity is different. Yeah, when I work with the Eurorack systems as well, and also some others, but when I sit in front of a physical machine, of a Eurorack system or what else, sometimes I feel like, let's say, too overwhelmed, and then I turn around, switch on my computer, take some VSTs, and things work better. And sometimes it's the other way around. I don't think that's only the sound. I think it's also the relation between the instrument and the person who is working.
Yes, you're actually very right. But there are also MIDI controllers that they can replicate this feeling that you have with hardware. And sometimes you can get very close to like working with hardware. So I don't know. It depends on the person that it depends on what you like.
And on the mood.
On the mood, yes, sometimes. Also, I have to say that working with modulars, it's a very different experience. You can get results that you don't expect from other instruments.
Yeah, that they live.
Whoever have worked with Eurorack knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. And also, if you work with other modular instruments like the Moog modular, for example, I don't have one. I wish I had one. That's a very expensive instrument.
Yeah, quite.
And it's very, very, it's amazing. The sound's amazing.
Yeah, right. By the way, thank you very much for sending me your album. and I've listened to it very carefully, and nearly I don't want to ask the next question, but let me ask it because I know the answer already after listening to your album. You have named your influences like ambient things, Berlin School, 80s inspired, and these are so different kinds of let me not say styles, but approach, attitudes to music. Don't you fear losing your focus?
Yes, I know what you mean. As I said earlier, I had many influences because I was exposed to this kind of music from early age. I was listening to progressive rock, I was listening to psychedelic rock, Krautrock, and later, as I said, to Tangerine Dream sequential music. As the years went by, I decided that I like this kind of music. I like ambient and Berlin School, and I found that these two styles have many common things. Like if you're listening to ambient, sometimes there are moments that there's a sequencer passage, similar to Berlin School, or when you're listening to Berlin School, there are moments of ambient. So these styles are very close to each other. So I can say that I'm writing different styles of music. I think each one has many similarities. And also, as far as 80s music goes, I think we are in a period of time that the 80s is coming back in fashion. For example, I don't know if you're familiar with the Netflix series Stranger Things.
No, not that much.
Not that much. There are many films nowadays and series like this, Stranger Things, where you're listening to the 80s kind of music. Very evident. And in many other styles of music, for example, I don't know how they say this, wave, 80s wave, something like this.
Yeah, new wave.
It's very much in fashion nowadays. And I don't know, I have many different influences because I live in a time that we're listening to different kinds of music. And maybe this is why
I see.
I write that kind of music.
Yeah, I see. But by the way, you say you write, meaning you are planning your pieces, or you are really composing your pieces note by note, or how is the way you produce these things?
Yes, that's a good question. I usually have one idea that I sit down and I play, and this idea leads me to something else. For example, I play melody on a synthesizer, then I'm thinking of playing an atmospheric pad over the melody. Then this leads me to something else. Also, like I said earlier, if I'm sitting in the modular synthesizer, the modular synthesizer will take me to a different kind of situation, a different path in music.
Sure.
So it's not that there's a specific procedure when I'm writing music. It depends on the instrument that I play at that time.
I see. Yeah.
It's not something specific.
I see. Well, let's talk about business.
Yes, of course.
You are present in all worlds, in the virtual, let's say more or less virtual world of downloads and streaming as on one hand, and on the real world of producing physical CDs, perhaps even cassettes, I don't know. How do you see the difference? How do you see the value?
Yes.
Of both?
Okay. First of all, streaming and downloads are the most popular methods of buying music, and CDs are not very popular because people prefer to download music. It's cheaper.
Yeah, sure.
I guess it's because it's cheaper, but there are still collectors of CDs that they want a CD to be signed, for their collection. They prefer to listen to CDs instead of MP3s. So I still like to have CDs for my music. I think it's a good thing. Personally, that's my opinion. But I don't know.
Lately, I talked to a German musician, Bernd Michael Land, perhaps you know, and he worked with Tangerine Dream in the beginning, and he never ever sets anything online. He says, I don't offer streams, I don't offer downloads, because it would damage my CD selling, and he's quite selling quite nicely. How do you see this argument? You say I would sell more CDs when I didn't have things on offer on Bandcamp or things like that?
Well, I don't agree with this opinion. I think they're both very good. The downloads are good and CDs. I don't know. I think most of the people like to download the music. But I like having the physical album. I don't know, maybe because I'm a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
I'm very much, in this kind of way. I don't know. It's a personal thing.
Well, I think one important aspect of CDs or even of cassettes is the booklet. It's something.
Yes, that's quite true. Yes, it's a booklet because it's something that you can read. You can read. You can see some information about the album, or you see the artwork of the album. You know? It's a very nice thing. It's very beautiful to have a booklet. And I always include booklets in my albums.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's even important for me, at least, to enjoy the music. When I have this CD and I have the booklet and I read in it.
Yes.
Typical thing. It was not CD. It was vinyl. Yes songs, for example. Without the pictures on the album, it would have been different.
It's something that lets your imagination. When you see the booklet, your imagination goes along with the music.
Yeah, that's
it. You see the picture and you listen to the music, and it's very artistic.
Yeah,
very artistic thing.